Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. This series, I am once again joined by my wonderful co-host, Matt Darn Kitty.
Dorkus and I are sharing our experience reading The Way of Kings for the first time. Each episode we will summarize what we've read and discuss the experience along the way.
This is Storming the Archives, The Way of Kings, and today we discuss Chapter 10.
Chapter 10!
Chapter 10, Stories of Surgeons. 9 years ago, 10-year-old Kaladin, late, hurriedly apologizes to his father, Lirin, who had already administered a drug to the patient, Sani, lying on an operating table prepped for surgery. A large globe filled with spheres illuminates the room with unflickering light. The Bromes are on permanent loan from Hearthstone's landlord. Sani's wound does not appear life-threatening. Had it been, Lirin would have started the necessary procedures using Cal's mother, Hesina, as an assistant, given Cal's tardiness. Lirin keeps his office immaculate because he believes you can tell a lot about a person from the way they keep their workspace. Cal inspects Sani's injured hand. He reminds himself of his father's lesson, that a surgeon must remain calm. Worry wastes time. Hard advice to follow. Lirin reminds Cal to wash his hands, though Cal doesn't understand why the practice is so important. Wisdom of the heralds. Deathspren and Rotspren hate water. It'll keep them away. Hammy says that's silly. He says Deathspren are mighty good at killing folk, so why should they be afraid of a little water? The heralds were wise beyond our understanding. But they're demons, Father! I heard it off that Ardent who came teaching last spring. That's the radiance he spoke of. You're mixing them again. The heralds were sent to teach mankind. They led us against the Voidbringers after we were cast from heaven. The radiance were the orders of knights they founded. Who were demons? Who betrayed us once the heralds left. They were not demons. They were just men who had too much power and not enough sense. Either way, you are always to wash your hands. You can see the effect it has on Rotspren with your own eyes, even if Deathspren cannot be seen. Cal sighs as he and his father continue prepping for the surgery. Cal reflects that his father has a reputation around town as being odd. The townsfolk are uncomfortable around him, and Cal by association. Lirin begins unwrapping the hastily bandaged hand. Cal notes how badly mangled the hand is. Cal has grown used to the sight of torn flesh thanks to his father's training. He's grateful for that training as he believes it will be helpful to him when he goes to war someday. Sani appears to have broken 3 fingers, one of which will have to be removed. Lirin is pleased that Cal is able to take note of that fact. A wise surgeon must know what to save and what to remove. The procedure goes as well as can be expected, with Lirin operating and Cal assisting. Cal notes his father is pleased about having been able to save 4 of the 5 fingers, though Sani's parents would likely be disappointed with the result. They would blame his father. To the townspeople, the healing has become an expectation, not a privilege. Lirin finishes by cauterizing and dressing the wound. You still need to work on those nerves of yours, son. It's good to care, but caring, like anything else, can be a problem if it interferes with your ability to perform surgery. Kaladin is skeptical and thinks to himself, caring too much can be a problem, and what about being so selfless that you never charge for your work? Of course, he'd never say that to his father. As father and son clean the room, Lirin inquires what caused Cal's tardiness. Cal explains with a small bit of trepidation that he and Tien had been with Jam, a boy 2 years older than Cal. Jam's father, a former soldier in Bright Lord Amaram's army, had been training him in the quarterstaff. Lirin is aware of Jam's father's experience in the army, as he has had to operate on the man's lame leg 3 times before. Cal argues that their country needs soldiers. Though Lirin negates the examples, he acknowledges that King Gavilar certainly finds people to fight. So we need soldiers, like I said. We need surgeons more. Son, you nearly cry each time someone is brought to us. You grind your teeth anxiously during even simple procedures. What makes you think you could actually hurt someone? I'll get stronger. That's foolishness. Who's put these ideas in your head? Why would you want to learn to hit other boys with a stick? For honor, father! Who tells stories about surgeons for the herald's sake? The children of the men and women whose lives we save. That's who tells stories of surgeons. There are two kinds of people in this world, son. Those who save lives and those who take lives. And what about those who protect and defend? The ones who save by taking lives? That's like trying to stop a storm by blowing harder. Ridiculous. You can't protect by killing. Liren begins testing Cal on medicinal plants and disease symptoms. He notes Cal's aptitude and intelligence, then tells Cal he'd like to send him to Carbronth when he turns 16. You have a gift from the heralds themselves. You could be 10 times the surgeon I am. Don't dream the small dreams of other men. Our grandfathers bought and worked us to the second non so that we could have full citizenship and the right of travel. Don't waste that on killing. Cal hesitates, then nods. Whew, what a chapter.
Nice flashback.
Before we get into the chapter, and there's no death rattle this chapter, I noticed.
Yeah.
A couple of quick housekeeping things to share with everyone. Storming the Archives is about to hit it into overdrive. It was requested of us that we do chapter 11 as a blind, so we're going to do it as a blind. So our next chapter will be uniquely long compared to the episode lengths that we have established thus far. The reason I bring this up, one, is to let you all know, to get hyped for it, but also I looked a little bit ahead, and not at the content, but at the following chapter, to double check that the next chapters are, in fact, the first set of interludes. And I don't recall if we have said it specifically on an episode before, but I've certainly said it in some of the comments. We intend to do each interlude in batches. So essentially it looks like there are 3 chapters in this first interlude. So following the blind, we will be doing a 3-chapter episode, which again will break from our usual episode length for Storming the Archives. So get even more hype.
Woo!
Yeah. And then after that, I believe we will be returning to our regular format that we have established. Until the next blind or the next interlude, we'll find out.
Stay tuned.
So, flashback chapisode.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. I think we get a little bit of why Kaladin doesn't want to be a surgeon and hasn't told the folks at the Shattered Plains.
Yeah, it's one reason he could have not told them. You know, I don't know if it's the reason. His knowledge is part of him. He can't forget. He doesn't just, not apply and not think about helping.
Well, it's not that he can't. It's that it seems like he doesn't particularly want to be a doctor.
Yeah, but this is a child as well. So if we're going back into what we have here, this is a child that obviously they want their adventure, and what is so much cooler to a little boy is fighting and all of that. Maybe if he was too into the surgeon stuff, we'd be like, okay, well, why do you like cutting flesh and stuff too much? So we're okay with that. And he also a young kid. Oh, I need glory and honor. That's what we're looking at. And he is looking at the dreams of other men, because that's what children do. They look at the dreams of other people. They don't have their own sense yet.
Yeah.
So it's you can see that influence. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have a different dream to his father. Doesn't mean that he has to just come to the surgeon dream, anything like that. It just means that he was busy fleshing that out. But it seems like that leads into this question I want to ask you. Do you think whatever the flashbacks, the flashbacks that we've gotten before, the flashes of memory of a young girl in a white shift dress or whatever, lying dead, all of that, some traumatic happening, do you feel like that has happened soon after this. Have I not?
I
Have I made myself? I don't know. I have not
you've made yourself
worded my
clear.
question. Okay.
Yeah, no, I did not commit an ADHD. I'm genuinely thinking of the question. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
I am kind of under the impression that a lot of what Kaladin has been traumatically thinking about with regard to death happened after King Gavilar was assassinated. So I think the young girl he thought of, I think Tien that he thought of, I think that all happened after the assassination, which is, I think, within the last 5 years, not the last 9. That reminds me, I got a bigger book. I had to get a new copy of The Way of Kings, and there are 2 pieces of artwork in it worth bringing up. One of them, it's not new, but the map, I actually could look at the map, and the map was dated 1167,
Mhm.
and it had King Gavilar's name associated with the year.
Mhm.
So I think that's our hint as to what year it is in current time, which is to say, if it's been 5 years since King Gavilar's assassination, that would be 1172. And I don't think we've seen anything past 1173 in the death rattles.
Mhm.
I'm prepared to guess that the current year is 1173.
Okay. I don't know. It's between the 2. So some of that, for me, some of the death rattles would be in the future. Some of the death rattles would be concurrent with what's happening. To me, there isn't enough confirmation of which year it is. It's just around that year, which, yeah, that's what I get.
Gotcha. Yeah. For His Royal Majesty King Gavilar Colin, Royal High Cartographer, 1167. And then the other piece of artwork was 3 shadowy figures with lines on their faces. And they looked eldritch and obviously connect to a previous death rattle that we have read, correct?
How so? Remind me.
There was a previous death rattle. Subject was of particular note.
Mm-hmm.
And the person was talking about having seen figures with lines for faces.
Okay. So we got that as like a pay attention to this, because we literally got an artwork for it.
Yes.
Where did that artwork appear? Was it by that death rattle?
No, it was in near the book cover.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, that was just a neat little aside. Oh, also, we know a little bit more about what happened to the Radiants.
Yes, they betrayed, they abandoned, I suppose.
Became corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Which again speaks to another death rattle. We were loved once.
Oh yeah, that was that rattle that you said. Maybe this is from a Radiant.
Yeah, and then that makes me think of the prelude where Yezrian and Kalak were talking about what's going to happen at the next desolation, and I think it was Yezrian that pointed to the Radiants that were there and was like, they'll probably be able to handle it.
Yeah, he said. Yeah, in I think the exact words were, "They have the Radiance." It's like, okay.
Well, now they don't anymore.
Yeah, you had a lot of faith in them, Radiance, but I suppose when your leaders abandon you, what are you going to do? They had a lot of faith in them. It's just like there are consequences to your abandonment.
So do you think because they didn't go to whatever weird hell they were supposed to go to that they died of old age? Because I'm struggling to imagine a world in which they come back at the 11th hour to save the world. I'm wondering if they're dead, the heralds.
Interesting.
Except for Tolenolot.
Yeah. What does it mean? That I feel like they can't. Okay, so my problem with that is that they can't get away with it that easy, right? They can't just go off and
no.
and
I
live
agree.
their lives and die, and then that's fine. I don't know. It feels like that's not the end of it. So while I agree, it doesn't make sense that they would not have died. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Why would they suddenly be just immortal and just living on and on and on and doing nothing in the world now?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm like, it's not that easy. They can't just die and then. Well, I need to know more about the Oath Pact.
Yeah. And I feel like it would be a conventional thought to say Kaladin and Shallan are probably going to fill the role of the missing heralds and whoever other main characters end up popping up throughout the story. But that seems a little obvious. Something to think about, I suppose.
Otherwise, they would be the main characters that try and gather the heralds, get the Dragon Balls together.
Yes.
I don't know. We need to know more.
Because it sounds like the citizens of the world have some understanding. And I think it was Zeth that said something like, no one really knows what happens. Stories have changed so many times in the thousands of years since then. So we have to take all of these things with a grain of salt, big heaping mountain of salt, I suppose. But they seem to know some things.
Yeah, they haven't forgotten altogether. Maybe they've twisted certain things. And look, pointing back at the influence of Wheel of Time on Brandon Sanderson's talk, writing, that's part of it. Part of like a theme of how legends change as time goes on. Things repeat themselves, but at the same time, the meaning of things is lost to time. I mean, we have that in the prelude or whatever of the Lord of the Rings itself. So
interesting stuff. Oh, Deathspren are invisible.
Does that mean they're invisible, or does it mean that if there aren't, in that context, if there aren't Deathspren visible? See, like I didn't get their. It could be that they're invisible, not that they are.
Interesting. I got that they are. Like no one has ever actually seen a Deathspren, or at least until they die.
So in that context sentence, it's like it's either or for me, because he could be talking about, you can see the Rotspren are averse to the water, whether or not Deathspren are visible. But
germ theory.
Yeah. So that was also lovely too. Like they don't have to know about germ or anything. They're just like, okay, there's Rotspren. But
they don't like water.
It makes sense that Deathspren wouldn't be visible. But why would they call them that? I mean, like, why would they?
Or how would they even know that there are Deathspren?
Yeah, why call them? Why if there's nothing visible and you have Spren everywhere? Why are you going to name something?
Maybe they just presume. Or maybe someone died and came back to life briefly.
We have life
5
Spren.
minutes. That's true.
So
but that's the life Spren struck me more as like nature Spren rather than like
aliveness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I could be swayed either way. So I'll take your word for it now. Spren invisible.
That was your first mistake.
But yeah, it was an interesting thing that it if it's confirmed later on that you can see them, I'm okay with it.
Remember in the Dragonbone chair when Simon and his friend try to join the palace guard?
Yes.
Yeah, this chapter very much reminded me of it.
Yeah, it gives that. It's like, they go and practice.
Yeah.
Yes, and I see Cal really just wanting that sort of exciting adventure thing going, and then it's just like now look at him. He's seen way more adventure than he ever thought of having.
Yeah. Oh, and Liren just screams Mr. Miyagi to me.
Just knows knower of all.
Yeah, and look, I'm no pacifist. I do think that there are just wars and just battles to be fought. It's always a tragedy, don't get me wrong, but I do personally struggle to get behind the full-on pacifist mindset.
Yeah, I see the merit in it, but it's just not workable as a solution to the violence of the rest of the world. It just means you're just going to die. That's all. You need to try your best. You need to be helping your best. You don't need to be wanton with your violence. Don't worry.
Yep. And you can conduct your wars in such a way as to avoid true catastrophes.
Yeah. Look, hey, hot take. I hate war. War not good. Let's maybe not do it ever. But it's there. Humans like that sort of thing. Humanity just tends towards it. And yeah, just surrender just doesn't seem to be. And that's what it would be for me. It's just surrender. It doesn't change anybody. You kind of have to have righteous.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that gets to young Cal's point in this is what about the people that protect and defend? Obviously, self-defense is a good thing to do. You shouldn't just
lie down.
Yeah. Protecting people is, I think, a noble thing to want. Now, obviously, Cal is, I think, too young to really comprehend the dangers of what all of that entails, but I don't necessarily think he's wrong.
Yeah, he has an instinct of this pacifism is it's just not practical. And he obviously has that childlike thing of you get honor from doing the violence and stuff like that. That's the childlike part. But there is the thing of, hey, he notices that it's impractical when his father as well, if we just go, is selfless to the point that he doesn't charge for things. That's also the impracticality of there is you need some sort of self-preservation. And it's a kind of battle that I suppose Kaladin goes through in his mind to justify his actions toward, joining I suppose at some point, joining the fight, unless he's thrust into it. Yeah, in which case I'm like, Branderson has dangled this girl in the shift in front of me and made me think that it's, and Tien is like also mentioned there. So I'm just like, is it that there's something tragic happened straight after this, and then he's thrust into the war, or like you said, it's a couple years later that whatever happens, that girl, the corpse happens, he goes off to war.
I will find out, I'm sure.
Hold on. Do I want to? Do we have confirmation of how is Kaladin's dad dead?
I don't think we know that.
But he has spoken about everyone being dead, like everybody he ever cared about being dead.
That could well mean his father's dead. Oh no!
But he hasn't said outright.
Yeah.
But he just hasn't thought of them, so I'm expecting them all to be dead.
It could be tragic. Maybe he was sent to Carbronth, and then he comes back and finds his whole village burned after King Gavilar's assassination due to some petty warlord or something. There's a character named Jam, and Shalon likes jam.
Ooh. That's not by mistake. Come on.
That's what I thought. That's why I wrote it down in the notes. And then I think my other note for this chapter was Kaladin sounded like a light-eyed name.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have him calling himself, I suppose, in this POV Cal as a kid. And now, and there, it's significant that later on he's Kaladin.
Yeah, and it's a big thing having the respect of the light eyes. Obviously, there's some degree of upward mobility for the dark eyes, and Cal, I think, really feels the class imbalance, you could say.
Yeah, well, the class imbalance between light eyes and dark eyes, but then also the imbalance that he has with the rest of his dark-eyed brethren, basically, because he
feels not estranged, but apart. I mean, they all think his father's odd, and therefore he is odd.
Yeah, and there's reference to working them up to the second Nan. So, and also his father's the only man of second non in their village.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a higher place to be in than the rest of the people. So there's another reason for him to be standing apart. And his father also has like that longer name. His mother as well. Tien, on the other hand, doesn't seem like a Lata's name to me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we've got that upward mobility. There was striving forward. They could never become Latas. I don't think that's a thing. You don't just go and marry a Latas person and then, but maybe that does happen.
It's very hard for a pleb to become a patrician. I do know patricians can become plebs, but I don't think it works the other way around.
Yeah. I think that's where you get those kinds of mixes. You get that from that downward mobility, not from upward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And again, also that's something you can work up to, and they have full citizenship and right to travel. That's quite cool. They're not exactly slaves, and so he has come down in the world now. Very much so.
About as low as you can go, I suppose.
He hasn't. The only thing is, he just hasn't jumped into the honor chasm. Basically, that will bring him lower. That's the only thing. Yeah.
Fair note, the chapter Honor Chasm was another blind recommendation, so we're keeping an eye out for that chapter as well.
Mm-hmm. I didn't see it in the contents, so...
Nor did I.
Maybe maybe the person has forgotten, like, maybe that's the name that they've ascribed to it, but it's actually got a different name.
I'm sure we'll see it when we get to it.
Mm-hmm. Right!
Anything else? Jinx?
Oh, wait, but we know that Kaladin is even smarter than his dad, because his dad remarks on how quickly he's learned all of these things compared to how long it took him to learn. So Kaladin is he's a smart boy.
He's got the potential.
Mm-hmm. But he wants to go and hit other boys with sticks.
Yeah. Just go wax on, Cal.
That's it.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week for a blind.
Good, thanks, bye.
Good, thanks, bye.